morning everyone, it's Carol here at Aakash Journals. Lovely to have you with me as always. So I'm going in with the next design in my little mini series Embroidered Wreath journal. So as you can see, this is the next design I've chosen to embroider, a lovely little simple wreath. I've lifted out 3 colours here. Now what I'm trying to do is use the same selection of DMC stranded cottons or floss in the whole of my journal so that I get some continuity or some flow going through the embroidered wreath designs. So these 3 I've used previously on some of the other wreaths that I've embroidered. I'm going to use 368 for these, which I think look like berries rather than leaves. Particularly up here, they've got little nodules on the end, which makes them look a bit like rose hips. But I'm in 2 minds which of these to use for the branch work. When rose hips are on the branches, there's very little vegetation. So really, the branch work ought to be brown. I'm going to just work it either in split back stitch or stem stitch. Not too sure until I get going. I'll make a start on that and come back to you and show you what it looks like. And I'll be able to enlighten you as to which stitch I've actually decided to use. Sorry, so indecisive today. Anyway, I will come back to you in a little while when I've started my stitching. Here's a quick update how this little one is getting on. I've worked everything in the brown, which was the 829 DMC thread, and I'm working it all in stem stitch. I've got 2 strands in my needle here. There was a pretty simple circle in the center of my wreath, and because I didn't want that to be so obvious, when I started working the branches, I actually started my first stitch on the opposite side from where the branch was. So if I just try and point it out for you, say for example this branch here, I've started working it over here, and similarly with this branch here, I've done my first stitch on the opposite side of the circle. And the idea behind that was just to break up this circle a little bit. So I'm just going to do some stitches for you on camera, and then I'll disappear off and come back when all of this is done, and just before I start doing these rose hips. So I'm just doing tiny little stitches. So as you can see, with this branch here that I'm going to do next, I've brought my needle up in on the inside of this circle. I'm going to make my first stitch on the other side, going down there. I'm trying to keep my stitches fairly small. Let me get rid of some of this thread. And I'm not keeping my stitches nice and smooth because, as you can see, the branches themselves are quite knobbly and angular, so I'm trying to do that with my stitches as well. And where I meet another branch, then I'm doing exactly the same thing. I'm stitching over the stem of the previous branch. So for example, this little one, when I finish doing this branch up here and I come to do this one, my first stitch will be on that left hand side. So just trying to keep the knobbles in the branches all the way along. So as you can see, not trying to keep them even at all. Another little one up in there. And then normally with stem stitch, to finish off, you would go down into that hole there. But what I'm actually doing is I'm going onto the other side of the branch or the stitch, just to give an extra little knobble to that stem. I'm going to do this little one next, and I'm going to come up round about there on the other side of this branch, down on the other side, so here's my last stitch because it's a very short branch, and as I say, normally I would finish off by going to the end of that stitch, but I'm just going to go off to the left hand side a little bit. So now I've got this little branch here, so I'm coming down to that point there inside my circle, and I'm just coming, instead of coming out opposite the branch, I'm just coming out slightly down and slightly out from my circle, going over the other side, just leaving myself a little bit of a gap on the outside of the circle, coming up there and just working my way along this branch and this stem as well. This this wreath is going to be very quick in coming together because obviously there's only a couple of stitches on it, but there's still a lot of stitching to do, but only a couple of actual stitches to use. Let's get a bit more thread. So I'll just finish off this one and then I'll disappear off and finish off doing everything else and come back, as I say, ready to start the berries. So this is my last stitch going in, like that. And same with all the others. I'm just going to go over the opposite side of my stitch. Okay, so there we go, everybody. I'm just going to carry on round finishing off these branches, and I'll be back shortly. So I'm back with a very quick update for you, and I'm just going to hold that up to the camera, maybe a little bit closer, and I hope you can see what I've done. So all the way around I've finished the stem stitch, and then I've added just little tiny straight stitches, I hope you can spot them, to both the branches and also to the stem. So there's one at the end of my fingernail there, there's a couple in here, well there's three in there at the end of my fingernail. I've just done that all the way around to make it look a bit more rustic and gnarled. And this is a branch there where I've put a little one at the bottom but not one higher up, and you can see the difference it makes. So I'm going to add another little one at the end of this stem there. So I'm going to do that, then I'll make a start on the little rose hips or berries, whatever you want to call them, and when I've done quite a few of those I'll come back and show you how I'm stitching those. Okay, so as you can see I've done a good few of my berries, and I'm going to stitch one of these on camera. The stitch that I've used is a stitch called Rhode stitch, and really all that is a series of straight stitches from one side of your design to the other, and each stitch crossing over the previous stitch. So it's very much like satin stitch, but with satin stitch the stitches abut each other or lie next door to each other. With Rhode stitch they actually cross over each other, and by crossing over it creates that lovely little domed effect. You can probably just make out that they're raised there. Okay, so I thought I'd stitch one of these with you. I haven't purely stitched Rhode stitch. I've done a lazy daisy stitch over the top to neaten up the edge, because with Rhode stitch what you can actually do is outline your design first with split back stitch or even chain stitch or stem stitch, anything like that. Because these are so small I haven't done that. What I did was a lazy daisy stitch, or sometimes referred to as a single chain stitch, right at the end to sort of encase the Rhode stitching that I've done. You can also start off with a waist knot or a quilter's knot. Now ideally you'd start off with a waist knot and you'd do a couple of little stitches in the middle of your design, because those little stitches are going to be hidden when you're stitching your Rhode stitch, and then you trim off your waist knot at the end of it. But I'm not going to do that. I have done it with these when I've started off a thread, but I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to start off with a simple quilter's knot, which is what I've got in the end here. And the reason for that is I don't want to blur what I'm going to try and stitch on camera for you so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to lower the camera down a little bit. So let's do that first. Okay, I hope that's better for you. I'm going to have a go at stitching this little one down here. As you can see, I've got a little point on each of my designs. I'm not going right into that point because the closing stitch or the final stitch, my lazy daisy stitch, will go into that portion. Quickly before I start, I should mention, as you can see here, the inside berries, they're all pretty faded because as I've been working, the design has slightly rubbed out. So I've gone over these outside berries, and I will be going over the inside berries with a Friction marker pen in due course. And as I'm always saying, this is a 0.5. Lovely fine tip on this. So, right, let's stitch the stitch then. So I've come up at 12 o'clock. And I'm going right down to the bottom at 6 o'clock there. Now I'm coming up at 7 o'clock. And I'm going up to the top to 1 o'clock. So I'm crossing over that first stitch that I've done. I'm coming down to the bottom and I'm going in at 8 o'clock and then up to 2 o'clock. And you just carry on working that design in that manner with your straight stitches all the way around until your shape is full. So I'm just going to carry on doing that. I'm not pulling my stitches too tight because I want that padded look. And if you find you've missed a gap, if you find you've got a little gap, then you can always go in with a single stitch and tuck it underneath. And if you find that you haven't got enough padding, then you can do a few more stitches over the top. So coming in for my last stitch here. I'm just going to squeeze one more in. Because I'm going round this with my lazy daisy stitch, it's quite forgiving. So there we go, that's the stitching done on this little berry. So I'm just coming in at the bottom of my berry, as close as I can get it at the bottom. Oops. There we go. Doing a nice loop, going back down in the same place as I came up, and just keeping my loop. And I'm sure you all know this lazy daisy stitch or chain stitch. Coming up at the top, there we go, inside my loop. And normally if you did chain stitch or lazy daisy stitch, you wouldn't pull the stitch tight, but I am actually going to do that. So as you can see, I've just tightened that loop round my Rhode stitches, and it's outlined my berry for me, just making sure that it is sitting nicely. And I'm going to pull it nice and tight, and I'm going in right on the outside of my circle as near as I can to where I came up, and that's my little stitch, or that's my little berry. So there we go. Whoops, got the needle stuck in me. So there we go. So as you can see, I've still got that little part of the design at the tip of each of my berries. I'm going to go in a minute or two. When I've stitched the rest of the berries, I'm going to go in a minute, and I'm just going to put a little tiny stitch, maybe one, maybe two at the end of each of those berries, just to finish them off. So I'm going to go away now and carry on working my berries, and then my wreath will be finished. And actually, I'm just going to go in and go over the design on the inside so that I can see where I'm stitching. So there we go. Still a good few more berries to embroider, but I'll have fun doing that, and I'll come back and show you the finished piece in due course. See you in a moment. And here is the finished wreath. I went in and I stitched the little ends to the rose hips in this 3781 DMC thread, which was a dark brown. I thought that would blend better than using black. And I just put in a few random one wrap French knots here and there all the way around my wreath, just where I thought it needed a little extra pop of colour. So I hope you enjoy seeing me embroider this one. Oh, close-up photos at the end for you to have a better look. Until then, or until the next video, everybody, take care and bye-bye from me. Bye-bye now.